Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Record Roll Vinyl Podcast. We are here live with three of the hosts. My name is Eder. We got Oscar. We got Tony. We are recording today about our podcast and our vinyl review. What's up, guys?
What's up? What's up? What's up? Good
Now,
morning
guys.
to y'all. Cool. So today we're gonna discuss Eder's record, which was a curveball he threw at us, but we took it pretty well. It's a very interesting curveball he threw because if you heard our previous podcasts, we are getting together once a week and we pick an album. Um,
We start on
and
Monday.
we start reviewing it on Monday. We hear the record, we dissect it. We make it our own record, even though we don't own it. Only the one that's picking it has the record. Uh, but in this case, record said, "Okay, I'm gonna pick this record. He said, "I'm gonna pick this album." And what's the name of the album, Eder?
It is called Good Evening New York City by Paul McCartney, the live 2009 album that he did a world tour on.
Yeah. So here we go. Start listening to it on Spotify for myself. How about you, Tony? What did you
I
listen
was
to it
listening
on?
to that on YouTube,
YouTube. So he
and then
YouTubed it. I
YouTube
Spotify'd it.
Premium,
I'm sorry.
Tony? YouTube
What,
Premium?
what was that? Yeah, yeah,
YouTube. Oh, so they get you
yeah. I have
listening
to
to
do premium.
the whole
Yeah, I
thing?
don't. I can't do the commercial. So a couple years ago, I did YouTube Premium, and I was like, I'm sticking to this.
Oh, nice. Very nice. All right.
So
Carry on.
yeah, we're listening to it, and then of course today the question was asked, "Hey, Eder, do you own that record?" And you figured, all right, 33 songs on a record. I mean, there are some compilation albums that have a lot of songs, and it ends up being like a four record album,
It's
and
an 8 LP. 8 LP.
or it would have been 8 LP, right? But no, it does not exist. We found out this morning it does not exist. Eder, Tony asked Eder, "Hey, Eder, do you have the record?" Because let's say our first week, my review was on these guys right here, and that's the record here that we reviewed. How
So
It made
uh,
an
how did it
appearance,
sound to the
Eder.
atomic bomb?
It made an appearance.
this video might not be uploaded, so just tell them what you're holding.
Okay, I'm holding you two. How did it sound to an atomic bomb? That's the first record that we started with, and then um, Tony did not Tupelo Honey.
He did
Van
St. Dominic's.
Morrison, St. Dominic's preview.
Yes, and so today it's Eder's turn to do Paul McCartney live, and we asked, "Where's the record?" There is no record. No record exists.
I was figured it was gonna be a record, but honestly, I was just so this is what happened, guys. So if you
Yeah,
notice what
let's go.
Oscar just said, he said you two, and then Tony did Van
Van
Morrison,
Morrison.
which both of them are from Ireland. One is from Belfast, right? So I was like, man, I feel like left out. I mean, I don't really know that many Irish singer. I'm pretty sure I could pick like I don't know other people from Ireland, but then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pick something that I really really enjoy and really like as an album. What is something that I could because Tony, um, uh, fair in mind, guys, Tony is not a big fan of Paul McCartney, believe it or not, like not a big fan at all. So I was like, what can I do to convince him? So I picked this 2009 CD that did come out in a compact disc that I own, right?
It does
But
exist. It's not on
it
the.
does
It's not on
exist,
vinyl format. Yeah,
not
we're
on
just
vinyl.
giving you a hard time. Just giving
So
you a hard time.
yeah, okay. So it's a disc. We'll give you that. And then the cool backstory. How did you get that, Eder? How did you get that disc?
Well, that disc, I actually went to that actual 2009 concert. It was probably my second or third concert, and I got to see the great Paul McCartney at the Hollywood Bowl, and it was
That's awesome.
amazing experience. And then I obviously they were selling merch and stuff, so I
You
purchased it
saw
there.
him wear his suspenders and all, right? You said.
Yeah, exactly how the cover of the I guess compact disc is the same type of clothes that he was wearing the whole tour.
Very cool. Well, It works. It definitely works because you actually got me to listen to a Paul McCartney uh in its entirety. Well, I take that back.
You were on
I
a
did
road
hear.
trip, right?
Yeah, I was on a road trip. I made a road trip out to Lake Tahoe from Covina all the way to Lake Tahoe, and then from there we went south to Monterey for another few days. So I was listening to the entire album. Um, yeah, so it's a great album. It was actually keeping me awake, so it did work for me. Sometimes on the long drive, we hear some music that you just don't get along with, you don't care for. It'll put you to sleep. But this guy kept me awake. So
Yeah, so this
I
guy
I,
in
I got to give it to him.
2009, in 2009, he was already probably in his mid to late 60s, maybe early, no, maybe late 60s. And he was already doing this world tour with like a 33 song set list. He was doing all these songs live. So Tony, what did you think about the Good Evening New York City, Paul McCartney's 2009 album?
All right, so I have a couple good things and a couple not bad things, but things that I mean you kind of expect at this point. So the one was that I heard a couple of songs that I had never heard him sing, and I thought they were actually pretty good. Like for example, the first one, Jet, I like that one. That one was pretty cool. That one was
Yes.
pretty up tempo, pretty cool. Only Mama Knows.
Oh, Eder, I'm sorry, Tony. Give us a side story of that song. I mean, a lot of people may not know this, but I say
So
you tell us.
a lot of people may not know that Tupac used Only Mama Knows as inspiration for his ginormous hit Dear Mama.
That's awesome.
I'm just so I actually just messed around and text that to Oscar and Eder when I was first listening to it, and they were like, I didn't know that backstory, and it's all bullshit. Sorry, I just made
I was
it up.
like, no
I just
way.
thought it was
Like,
funny.
It,
McCartney.
yeah, when Eder said no way, like, hey, that's so awesome. I was thinking, well, is that something that Eder didn't know about Paul McCartney
And guess
from
what?
that from that record? But
Like
it sounded awesome. It made sense when Tony said it. I can
like
picture Tony's straight face, poker face, just saying, "Hey, you guys know that it inspired Tupac Shakur and to create Dear Mama." And I was like, "Oh wow, that's pretty cool." And here I was about to start listening to see if I caught like any riff that just that
I should
Tupac
have
might
let
have
it go.
sampled it, and then of course I heard it and I was like, no, that's definitely nothing like Tupac's
so I
Dear
was picturing
Mama.
in my head like somebody in death row goes, you know what you need? You need a cover of Paul McCartney song, man. This is Death Row Records. And then
Paul
Tupac was
McCartney.
like, you know what? I need some Paul McCartney. I need some say updated version of that.
Oh man, yeah, but that was funny. But so okay, the one thing I did notice right off the bat, he has some really good musicians playing with him. Like that, the
Yes,
actual
yes.
musician, like the you know, it was clean, it was crisp, it was good. I did enjoy that part. I really did.
He actually
Um,
won a Grammy for this album for the musicianship, actually.
oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that, but just right off the bat, when I heard the first few songs, I'm like, this is like he's got some good musicians playing with him. And I don't know musicians like by
Do you
name or
know
any of
one
them.
of them?
I don't.
Did anybody do a research on any of the musicians? So
The
one of them
musician.
is his name is Laboriel. Laboriel, he is the nephew of Johnny Laboriel, who is a famous
Salsa, right?
Mexican rock singer who's an
Oh,
Afro
Johnny.
Mexican.
Yeah, you have to
I
specify
know who you're
that
talking about
Afro
now. I know who you're
Mexican.
talking about.
Afro
He's the one
Mexican.
that would do this, Eder. And of course, if this video doesn't upload, but I'm making the face just like Eder's is. Yeah, he would do
Yeah, I
that.
remember.
He was really
He used to come
famous
on
for
TV
that.
a lot, right?
He
Yeah,
is the
Yeah,
Melodia de Amor. That's the song he made
yeah. So, um, so
from
besides
American.
that, like you said, I was throughout the record. I mean, the songs that stood out to me the most were his Beatles covers, right? I mean, why I can't call them covers because he's part of the Beatles, but
Right.
he's doing it by himself.
Doing renditions.
So his Beatles renditions, yes, correct. So my only thing though, when I was listening to his Beatles renditions, I felt like something was missing. Not that this was bad or anything like that. I just when I listen to Beatles songs and all the
Yeah,
Beatles weren't
sing the
present,
other
they're
three.
not this. they're not the same to me, right? Like they just don't feel the same. Like
Yeah.
for example, I'm looking through the track list right now.
Hey
Uh,
Jude. Hey Jude.
But that
but
was
Hey
his
Jude, he
song.
sings. That was his song. So that one, and I think Blackbird, he sang completely. So those felt the same, right? Because Blackbird was him or was John Lennon better?
No, no, no. Blackbird is him.
Okay, so those two like felt the same because he sang the whole songs.
Right.
But like when he sang like something, because that was a George Harrison song, felt
Yeah, he did
different,
a tribute, like something,
right? He
and
did
he did
tribute.
it
Oh,
to
and
ukuleles.
that's what I was gonna ask you right now. Okay, do you know why he did the ukulele?
Yes. So
I know you
basically,
don't. So
so Harrison was a huge fan of the ukuleles, right? So
mhm.
he would go in his house in Friar Park, right? And he would just bring out ukuleles and he would pass them out to he taught the guy that say free flying, or what was his name? Tom Petty.
Tom Petty.
Company.
He taught Tom Petty how to play that. So McCartney, as a tribute to Harrison, which he did like a kind of like a potpourri, right? Where he did like a tribute to Harrison and then he did a
Mhm.
tribute to John Lennon. And then he did something on a ukulele, which I love because the beginning is ukulele and then in the
And then it
middle of the song
switches.
it
Yeah.
switches.
Yeah.
So he
That
did the same thing. He did the same thing. There's a George Harrison tribute concert that happened
yes.
also, and that's he played it the same way. He started it with the ukulele, and then afterwards, I remember because I looked into that record before, and I kind of read some of the details on that one before. So when I heard this one, I heard the ukulele, I kind of knew right off the bat, like, okay, he did that in tribute to George
I
Harrison
thought it was
because
charming. I thought it was charming. I
oh, it was
thought his
cool. It was cool. I
it
like
was
that part. And then the other thing was, I don't know if this specific ukulele, but the one he used in that other concert was a gift from George Harrison to Paul McCartney. So I'm not sure
oh
if this one was the same ukulele, but it was a gift that from Harrison to him. So that was cool. I heard that and I was like, all right. I immediately recognized that. Um,
go ahead.
but other than that, like it was a good concert. It was a really good concert. I actually enjoyed the record. I started off with a little bit of bias because you know me, I mess around with you and how I feel like Paul McCartney is my least favorite Beatle. Um, but after the first few songs, I'm like, you know what, these are pretty good. The only thing also is like we were talking about last week with Van Morrison, like at a certain point, and I guess at a certain age, your voice starts changing a little bit. Like it doesn't sound exactly the same it was before, which isn't a bad thing. But I found myself kind of comparing the originals to some of this,
Especially,
and
yeah.
yeah, and I felt like I almost felt like the Beatles at a certain point are like some of their parts when it comes to their specific songs. Like I feel like it just misses
Yeah, yeah, I
that
could hear. I could
extra
see
touch
that.
of the rest of Blue, but which of course is
Yeah.
never gonna be the same, But it was actually a good concert.
It was actually done in
Better,
a lower tone, actually, I think, because of his
yeah,
voice.
yeah. So, but it was good. I don't have nothing bad to say about. I always mess with people with Paul McCartney, but those were the only two things that I think like his voice. He's older now, and this is 10 years ago. So imagine now, when he toured, he
Oh yeah.
toured recently. He played SoFi recently. So I don't know, I don't know how his voice holds up anymore. But that's the only thing I kind of missed when I heard like all his Beatle renditions, like just
Right.
that extra, with the rest of the guys. Which, but it was done good. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of songs I didn't recognize though, because I'm imagining some of these were his wing songs, right,
His
and
swing
his solo
songs.
songs. Yeah, so there was a lot of songs I didn't recognize and I heard for the first time, but it was good. And like I said, I enjoyed the first right off the bat when I heard Jet and Only Mama Knows, those were really good. And
Did
then
you
of
hear?
course all of
Did
his
you
Beatle
hear?
renditions.
I'm here today. Have you heard that? And if I say I really knew you well, what would you answer me? Here today. So that song basically here today is a open letter to John Lennon talking about the relationship. And basically he stops the show, right? And there's a solo light that goes right on it. And it's like this song I wrote right when John Lennon died. And I want to sing it to you
Mm.
guys. And it's an open letter for him saying, like, hey, and if we see each other today, would you still laugh at me and telling me that we're worlds apart? And I was like, wow, that's like the
Oh
essence
wow.
of what Lennon
See,
and McCartney is.
I didn't
That's
was that part on the record, like that speech?
No, he just goes right into the
Because I
song.
because I didn't recognize I didn't remember that part. So I was like, did I miss this? Did I hear this while I fall asleep? Because I listened to a lot of this while either I was at work or while I was in bed, and sometimes I would fall asleep, and then the next day I would try to pick up where I left off, but I don't remember that piece.
Yeah, it was here today, and then you have songs like, of course, he did the long and winding road. He did um, Eleanor Rigby. some of the Beatles songs that he did, of course, "Something," "Let It Be," "Hey Jude," "Day Trip," "Lady Madonna." The reason I picked this album is because he hasn't done these particular songs ever live, so that's kind of the enticing part of this album. He
Can
never
I tell you that the Long and Winding Road is probably one of my favorite Beatles songs? I want
Oh,
I love that song. I love that song.
very
That
it's
McCartney.
song is really cool.
yeah. Now is do you guys feel or do you guys know if I mean what was I headed with this question? Because he's doing George Harrison songs, he's doing John Lennon songs, and um, I know he had that feud with John Lennon, but is there any holding back when he does a specific tribute to one of his peers that had passed away,
He
or
gets
not?
really emotional. He gets really emotional when he sings the John Lennon song. Like when I saw him do that, he was crying actually.
You know what?
Yeah, and that's why I'm asking because I've heard that to where he had that. It's almost like I know this is a different, a strange
Topic.
comparison,
No, no. I think you're going where I
no,
wanted to
like
go. Go for it, Oscar.
Like Dr. Dre with Eazy-E, right? Because they,
Mm.
you know, obviously they were known as NWA. They blew up like that, and then they had the beef, and then of course Easy dies, and Dr. Dre's like, okay, I wish I could do more songs about Easy, but they have that. I mean, do you think it was anything compared to that animosity at one point, Eder
I think what it is
or
that
Tony?
it's definitely less street, right? So it's definitely more like a European thing where it was
That's
hard for
true.
a man and a man to show love to each other. It's very stoic. So it was kind of like, yeah, you know what? So when a tragedy happened, all these emotions that humans really feel kind of got evoked, and he kind of felt that he had to sing the song to a guy that he met at 15 years old, and both of them at the same time, not necessarily at the same time, but maybe a couple of years apart, losing their mom at 15, 16 years old. So they had this thing
Yeah,
that they would cry about every day about John Lennon's mom getting ran over by an off-duty cop, and of course Paul McCartney's mom dying of cancer. So it's very like um, uh, something so intertwined. They did the whole Beatle thing. There's only four people in that band, and they are the only ones to know what happened inside of that hurricane. They call it the eye of the hurricane because everything was going around them. And when he died suddenly, tragically, at 1980, McCartney couldn't say goodbye to him, and this was his letter of saying goodbye.
So, Eder, going to that point you just made when he passed away, I've seen that interview when they interviewed him that day that he passed. What do you think about that interview? Was this and again, I don't know the history between, like Oscar
Right.
said, the feud, but that specific interview, I remember when they talked to him. I don't know if it was
It's a
shock or what it
drag.
was, but he seemed very kind of stoic about it. And then at the end, he's like, it's a drag, and then just kind of walked off. And then everyone like kind of criticized him for that, or at least I read it.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
he
right,
got
right.
criticized a lot. What did he ever like say anything about that?
So again, this is exactly what I was kind of talking about, right? You have this stoicness of this English man. Remember, the English people, especially of that generation, are not were not allowed to show that type of expert of emotion, right? So when he was at a studio recording a couple of songs, and then all of a sudden, him and George Martin, the Beatles producer, were next to each other, and they heard that he died. And then when the cameras caught him, if you see his face looks like what the hell's going on type of thing,
So
right?
that actually got caught on camera, like his like when they actually
Yeah.
told him.
So when he heard the news, it was like minutes from him hearing the news, and he was just like he couldn't process it. So his way
Yeah,
of like doing that, he said he went back to like when his mom died and just kind of like went up to his room, and in his head it was like I figuratively went up to my room and just said, "Yeah, it's a drag." Like he couldn't say anything.
yeah.
wow.
Did you ever hear about George Harrison's reaction?
No, I mean, kind of what
So
happened.
I listened to I was going to the whole rabbit hole. So there was an interview. I don't know who the guy was. It's probably some British host, but he was interviewing Ringo and George Harrison. This was years later, and they asked him like, "Hey, what was your guys' reaction when you heard the news?" I forget what Ringo said. I think Ringo was something more normal, you know. But George Harrison said, "I was asleep. It was like 4 in the morning. So I don't know what time this happened, where he was at, time difference, whatever. But he said it was like 3 or 4 in the morning when he got the news. He said it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. Phone rang. His wife picked it up, and then she heard it, and then she told him, John's been shot, and then he's like, okay, and he thought like, well, how bad is it? Did you get shot in the leg or something? He's like, no, he's dead, like he's gone. And then he was like, oh, and then he's like, and I went back to sleep. He's like, it
Oh
wasn't
wow.
I didn't care. He's like, it was just like, I don't know if I couldn't process at the moment, or what it was. I laid down and I fell back to sleep, and then the next morning I woke up and I was like, what the hell, was this even real? Like, so it's crazy. Like, Paul McCartney didn't know how to process words, but then George Harrison went to sleep. So
Yeah, I think again, I think a lot of it has to do with the British mentality. Um, but the other thing is too is that Harrison didn't believe in the body. He said that the body is just a vessel.
yes,
So
he said that.
he to him the death wasn't really a thing. Like he believed hardly with his heart that that he moves on to the next level or to next phase. So he wasn't really dead. But basically, when they all died, when he died, what was coincidentally that year they all got back together to do a song. So the remaining Beatles got back together. So I thought that was pretty cool that they did.
When John died.
John Lennon died, right? John Lennon died.
Okay.
They got back together to do a on one of Harrison's albums. They all played in it and they all sang in it, but they were all wearing ape costumes, so they wouldn't see that they're actually the Beatles. They did that in the video. It was pretty cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, that last part got me. That was funny. That's
Yeah,
really
because yeah, because
they
they
would do
the
something like
thing is
that.
they didn't want to be they didn't want to mess with the integrity of being the Beatles,
Oh,
so they
so
just
it was
put
a
a
Paul
suit on.
McCartney's. So it was a Paul McCartney song, and everyone else didn't realize that it was George and Ringo playing with them.
Exactly,
Oh,
exactly,
okay, I got you.
exactly.
All right, I get it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
crazy.
That's the Beatles for you, huh?
That's the Beatles. They have so much integrity for their work. They're really integrity for their work that they were like, specifically when Michael Jackson bought the rights to ATV, Northern Songs, right, to own the Beatles. Um, uh, his songs or the Beatles songs were putting now into Chevrolet commercials like Getting Better or stuff like that. And McCartney was like, we wrote these songs to mean something, not to sell sneakers. And unfortunately, the Beatles songs got diluted and they were in commercials everywhere because of Michael Jackson.
That's funny.
That
That
that is. Yeah, yeah, because these guys are making those tracks and they're working on them, thinking like, that's how genius they are, right? Like they're just thinking like we're targeting this music for a
To our
specific
generation.
reason, and then here someone comes along and just makes it like a zippity doo dah song, and they're gonna be
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
now everyone's gonna listen to it, and just like that, like just a clip of it, and
Yeah.
I can only imagine that, and especially as you get older,
Yeah.
you start thinking like things are much more valuable, right, than when you were first making, when you were young making them. So just picture that, like right now that you said that, editor, that just blew my mind. I was thinking, wow, I can totally hear, especially Paul McCartney saying something like that.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He said basically when he wrote stuff like Let It Be, right? Is it when I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. Mother Mary is his mom. That's his mom's name, right?
mm,
So a lot of people thought it had a religious undertone. They thought Mary like the mother of God, but it was his mom
Yeah.
that came to him. And when he turned on the TV, it was a commercial for soap. So for him, it was just kind of like, I
that's
wrote this
messed
for
up.
my mom and stuff like that. And now when people hear, and a lot of songs have a habit of having that, right? You hear it so much on
Yeah.
radio or on TV as a catchphrase, and you're like, you're talking about the Wendy song, not even
Yeah,
talking about like, hey, this song, right? But
Yeah, you're not talking about the masterpiece that
exactly.
it took someone so long, so much heart, so much effort
Are you
to
talking about Wendy
create.
299
Yeah,
299
talking about
commercial?
the
Like,
the
yeah,
Pal- the Palm Olive commercial.
exactly. So
yeah,
I think, and that's a great segue, Oscar. I would like to talk about that. So the Beatles, when they were young and they signed their contract, their publishing contract, they only got a percentage, and in 1969, they lost that contract and they got sold, right? So they got sold to Sony, and now they did, or EMI, and they couldn't even own their own music. So when the 80s happened and Lennon was dead, the album, I believe the publishing was north of 60 or 80 million dollars or even more, I believe. And McCartney didn't have that loot all by himself. He told Yoko, and Yoko said, nah, I don't think I want to buy the rights. So in the midst of Thriller, In the midst of Thriller, Michael Jackson buys all the rights to the Beatles catalog. And mind you,
Ir-
McCartney didn't
Ironically,
do that.
ironically,
McCartney did that with Buddy Holly, remember?
Right.
yeah, it's a game of funds, right? Who has the most funds to be able to
Hey,
accomplish
so
such a thing?
whatever happened to those rights? Who owns them now?
So when Michael Jackson died, he was actually before he died, he was going broke, right? He needed money, so he
Mm.
sold just a small percentage, maybe I want to say like a 30% maybe of the tracks back to Sony. He sold those for like hundreds of millions of dollars, right? He sold that for a lot of money. So he thought in his will he was gonna it's just gonna say I'm gonna bequeath their rights back to original owner, right? Because McCartney's a writer. So that didn't happen. But what did happen, which was cool, Little Richard was broke, living in poverty, close to poverty. McCartney owned the rights to this. And when he died on his will, he said, give the publishing all the way back to Tutti Frutti, Long Tall Sally, all those songs back to Little Richard. And overnight, Little Richard became a millionaire again. What a crazy.
So Michael Jackson gave those back to Little Richard?
Little Richard, yeah, because he said
Oh,
that
wow.
Little Richard got messed up in the music industry that didn't take care of, which is very true, but he didn't do the same thing for
I
McCartney.
was I was gonna bust a stupid joke, but I'll hold it to myself. Anyways, I was gonna say, what do you
No,
do
so,
with that money?
now McCartney
You
actually
want to spend?
in 2019, I think he owns the Beatles rights again.
How did he purchase them back? Like from
So
the Jackson estate
there's
or
a
what?
law that says after 65 years or a certain amount of time, the sole writer, gets a portion back of
Possession.
the song. So he
Oh
he
wow.
got it back, but then Sony was "No, you can't do it." So they get into a non-disclosed agreement that McCartney got all the music back. So McCartney owns it now, and
Wow.
nobody knows how much it went for. It was undisclosed.
Wow.
Wow.
So it came back.
You know, for those listeners, if you notice, Tony and Eder are doing most of the talking on this particular show. I'm kind of
We're
like
gonna get
just
to the
sitting back
Ramona
listening to
Ayala
it.
soon, don't worry.
Yeah, dude, no, it's just you guys have so many Beatles facts. I mean, you look at Tony. He fell into that rabbit hole that he just started when he started this talk about Harrison and and Eder. I mean, you're probably the one that has the most Beatles knowledge here, but I've never gone into the Beatles as much as, and I don't know if I ever would get into them as much as you guys have. I don't know. There's something that from the Beatles that lack my full
You know,
attention.
And,
No,
and you're saying this
Oscar?
as Ringo Starr's behind you.
Yeah, the only the reason why I have Ringo Starr,
He's
I-
like
I
right
haven't
behind
e-
you as you're saying that.
no, I haven't even
I
listened
remember
to
when you got
that
that one.
to that
I
record.
remember when you
Yeah,
got that
and
one.
I got it just because of the cover. I haven't even listened to it. I'm gonna have to give it a try. But
Hey, let me tell you, Oscar. I probably discovered the Beatles maybe within the last 10 years. At first, like when I would hear the Beatles, I always thought like those first years where they were like that, the fun Beatles, and to me that wasn't interesting. Like I was like, that's not for me. So I never gave them a chance. And then when I started listening to some of their other music, like man, they actually have some awesome music, and then they even have some songs that I'm like, this is the Beatles, like
yeah,
on Abbey Road, like
yeah.
Come Together, and the other one, uh, it's like the fourth song on side one.
Golden Slumbers, Carry the Weight.
No, sorry, it might be the last song on side one. Um,
The End.
dude, it sounds like freaking almost like metal, like it's a hard rock song, and I was like, dude,
Oh,
what the hell? That's the
did you
Beatles.
guys listen to Helter Skelter on this
Yeah, oh, yeah. Helter Skelter's one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
When I get
On
to
that,
the
yeah,
That's not how the
and,
song goes. They did it.
it sounds different. I was gonna say it sounds different. And of course, it's so funny. I know you guys are gonna laugh at this, but I the reason why I got into Helter Skelter wasn't because of the Beatles. It was because of
because of Charles
YouTube.
Manson. Oh,
YouTube, no, YouTube
Charles
covered it.
Manson.
Yeah, but you two covered it, and then I liked the that song when you two did it, and then I heard the original from Beatles, and I was like, oh, okay, that's they did a good justice to us.
I
To,
I think they're one of those artists. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Oscar.
no, I was gonna say, well, you can go ahead and because mine is just about I've been. You said Tony that you've been giving them. You got into them about 10 years, and I've been listening to them. Well, my wife is one of the. She's a very big Beatles fan. Edward knows that already. She knew when I was playing that record. Well, that the yeah the record the album Paul McCartney. She was singing along to half of the songs to half of that album. I only knew just the Beatles ones and a couple of the McCartneys, but I'm listening to them. I purposely put these records. I'll do that. I'll put these records out and I'll put them like at my distance, like to so I can see them. And it's sometimes I do I purposely do it just so I can. Hey, you know what? Let me throw that on now, and I'll throw them on, and I'm listening to them, and I still haven't gone into them as people say I should. Like, oh, come on, you don't love the Beatles? People will tell me you don't love the Beatles. I'm thinking of my comadre. What? The Beatles are the best ever, right? And then Eder, same thing. And I still haven't gone that, and I've been listening to them for over 20
I
years. And
think I think what happened with the Beatles is right that this thing came from another country, right? From a European country, right? And they came to the United States and they just massively overtook the music industry. That's like a phenomenon that's now reoccurring, but never happened then. That somebody from another country made a splash in America, right? When the '64, when the Beatles came. But I think the reason why the Beatles fans are the fans is because from '64 to 66, 2 years, just 2 years are completely different Beatles. They're not singing about She Loves You,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah now they're singing like songs like um uh you have songs that are talking about help, introspective songs. They're talking about songs like something, or even like the Sergeant Pepper stuff that we just listening to. That was only really 2 3 years or 2 years before I Want to Hold Your Hand. Look at how from two albums they went to like
yeah, yeah, no, no,
Lu-
they,
Lucy in the
they
Sky
have
with
drastic.
Diamonds. Yeah.
It's innovation. That's innovation from them, right? Like that's their creative minds doing that, and I totally respect them. I'm gonna give them. I totally respect them because they're genius. They're pioneers of so much of our current music, right? But it's just, I listen to them. I respect them, but they're not my favorite band. I mean, I
So
guess I can put it that
the
way.
rumor is that there's 10 Beatle albums, right? And there's approximately 10,000 hours worth of music, which is equivalent to the 10,000 hours words in the Bible.
Bible, Bible. Yeah.
Hey,
Uh,
I think I mentioned this to you guys, right? I did Eder when I was talking to you about that book by I forgot the writer's name, but it's that book where they do a lot of analysis on people that are like experts on things, and it's like a social. I forgot the name of the book. I'll look it up before the end of the day. But did you guys know that the Beatles, and I know you know this, Eder, they were like I think it was in Germany. Correct me if I'm wrong, Eder, but they used to play nightclubs like they would say like 7 8 hours a night for like 3 years straight. Like they were playing nightclubs, and
This
that's
was
how
before
they
the
honed their
before.
skills. Yes,
This was before
before they blew up,
64.
before they
Okay.
got famous. That's how they started, and that's how
they own their
they just
craft.
hone their skills. And they're like, and that book talks about, they're like, you guys think the Beatles were born with this like genius like rock playing, and they were all amazing from birth? They're like, these guys had thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of practice
Hours of
before they
practice. Yeah.
ever like made it. And this whole
Right.
book details about how you could be a genius at anything if you have at least 10,000 hours of practice. If you have 10,000 hours of practice in anything, you will be uh, like a master
Master.
at that craft.
Right.
And they're like, if you think about the Beatles, they pretty much had that. They're all, because all those years that they played at these little nightclubs in Germany and England, all that stuff, like these guys practiced immensely. Like You know,
day in, day
they
out. So
became masters. They became masters of what they did because they practiced so much. So it's crazy. The whole backstory on them. It's not that they just picked something up and they were just complete. Those
exactly.
guys, those
Yeah.
guys worked. They worked
Definitely
hard.
not a manufactured band. They were definitely not.
Yeah,
So when they went to Hamburg, Germany, right, in the beginning of 61, 62, they played these places called the Kaiser Keller, all these places, and they would have to sing American songs. So this was a port, right, in Germany, where a lot of troops and a lot of Marines and soldiers would just sit in this like brothel type of area, like the red light district, and they would sing 16, 20 songs, 30 songs a night, and they would have to learn how to play these songs, and they were all hooked on amphetamines because they would take these and play for 16 hours. So everybody would be hooked on amphetamines, and they would be playing these songs at the Kaiser Keller, right? They were playing all this stuff like the Star Club. Well, which is amazing that they had this. So the reason why the Beatles got so big in 64, they stopped touring in 66. They didn't want to tour anymore. They didn't want to play. That's why the Beatles albums got more innovative. But what ended up happening is they got lazy as musicians because they weren't touring or playing, right?
Mm.
The Beatlemania was drowning out the
It,
actual
it
music.
was it was dying out.
They wouldn't even say when they would sing, they wouldn't even sing the right words because nobody could really hear them. So imagine that being the greatest band of all time, and the music is not even heard because of the hysteria of Beatlemania. That's
that's
crazy.
crazy. See
It,
that the whole
they
thing is
they got
like,
burned out.
They got burned
It
out,
burned
and
them out.
that's why they said Paul McCartney died in '66. Because if you notice, we were listening to Sergeant Pepper, and I was showing Oscar all the clues how McCartney's back is turned, how there's
Yeah.
flowers and stuff like that. But it was obviously a myth, but it was a myth that the Beatles cultivated in their songs as well.
that's funny when I hear the whole Paul McCartney diet. I haven't deep dove on that, but it's just funny how that is. Can you give us a quick rundown on that,
So,
Eder?
so
Because I don't know the
basically,
whole backstory.
I'm
McCartney got
gonna
in a
go
car.
grab that record. Actually, I left it outside.
McCartney, he got in a car
Oscar's
accident.
mobile, by the way, guys. Oscar is mobile.
Yeah,
Go for
he's
it, Eder.
mobile.
Obviously, yeah.
After this podcast, we're doing a documentary on his life. Um,
He has a crew. He has a crew at home.
Ed
yeah, he's a
TV.
grown.
Am I dating myself? Ed TV.
At TV, I remember
Yeah.
that.
So
Go ahead,
so
Eder.
McCartney left the studio in '66, and he got in a really really bad car accident. So he had a cut. There's an actual music video where he has a cut right here. So that's why he grew the mustache. And then
Mm.
coincidentally, all the other Beatles grew the mustache. So in this album right there, what Oscar's holding on the right side to the Sergeant Pepper, there's the original Beatles, and then this is the Make Believe Band. So if you see McCartney right there, turn the album around, Oscar, turn it. You see McCartney, his back is facing
Yeah,
everybody
yeah. His back is
and
turned.
all looking at each other, right? So these are the signs, and there's like if you play a song backwards, it says Paul is dead. Paul
So they were
is dead.
feeding into they were feeding into the
They're
hysteria, like
feeding
the
into it. But everybody to this day, there's a big population of people that are saying that McCartney is not McCartney because he's the only one in this group that changed his name to Billy Shears. They said that Billy Shears is the real Paul McCartney. So
that's
it's
Wow.
very, very, very,
Well,
very interesting. They stopped touring the same year, right? They got introduced to a different drug. McCartney stopped using his famous bass. So I don't know, man. A little interesting.
they have a they definitely have a great marketing team.
Oh, for sure.
Just because I mean, unless it's all them creating all that, I who knows? I don't know. Was it
So
them
you just had
getting that creative?
in your hand, Oscar. You just had the long. No, wait, what's it called? Abbey Road. You just had Abbey Road in your hand, right?
earlier.
Yes,
Yeah,
earlier I did have Abbey Road. Yes.
Do you still have it somewhere around you around there?
Yeah, it's still right here.
Do you see Paul McCartney? What's under his feet?
No shoes. It's just
That signifies
it,
death. That signifies a man in those times where if you don't have your shoes, that means you're dead.
hey, was Abbey Road after Sergeant Pepper?
Yeah, Abbey Road was way after
So they were
Sergeant.
still feeding into it. They were still like,
Yes,
what
they
can
were
we
feeding
do?
into the whole time. There, McCartney, Lennon did a song. It was like, you're dead. Yeah.
Hey, do it in the voice header. What do you think? What do you think happened here? Where they're like, Paul, what can we do to keep feeding this?
yeah,
This
exactly.
so they're all singing around together. So like, um, John was like, Paul,
you got in that accident, and now we gotta fix it, right? So I'm gonna sing. I'm gonna write a song called the day. So he wrote a song called um, uh, "A Day in a Life," right? And he's
A
like,
day in the life. Yeah.
he said he shot his mind into the car, right? So he's talking about
Well,
a
so
car.
was that about McCartney?
He's talking about
Yeah, I
McCartney.
never knew that part was about this whole thing because I didn't know the backstory of the Paul McCartney was dead thing. All right, go
Yeah,
on.
so that's the whole thing. So he's feeding into it, right? And then you have Harrison writing a song called I, me, mine, me. So now it's I, me, mine. So it's about the ego. So he's saying that McCartney, this new McCartney that took over, has an ego of I, me, mine. It's all about
Everything
I.
me, me, me. Yeah,
Yes, everything me, me, me. He even wrote a song called the Wawa song because every time
Well,
McCartney,
that song,
the Wawa song.
me, my, inspired me, myself, and I. Oh, just me, myself, and I.
see, if we didn't have Snoops, I would believe that.
Myself and I.
So then John is like, Paul, we should do that. And Paul goes, I think so, John. Maybe we could do that. And Joe's just like, that's a great idea. I think we should do it. And then Ringo was like, I'm all aboard. I'm just a drummer. I just do whatever you guys want me to do.
Poor Ringo.
uh, claps,
Oh,
clap,
shoot.
clap, clap,
That was
clap. I'm
good, Eder.
clapping
That
my
was good,
hands.
Eder. I don't have
Yeah,
the clap effects. If not, I would give it to you right
yeah. And I'm holding my phone, so I can't. I
So,
guess I
so
can
there,
snap
there's
this way.
there's a way to
now.
imitate the Beatles. All right, so it's called the house, the Beatles, right? So if you go upstairs, right here, upstairs is John is upstairs, and if you go to the front of the house, well, Paul's like right here, like downstairs and stuff, and if you go to the back of the house, that's George Harrison, because George is talk like more like this. And he says stuff like hello, and then Ringo's in the roof because he's always like, hey, what's up, guys? How you guys doing? Everything's,
Wow. So that's how you
Oh,
can. That's the guide to how to mimic
to
the
Beatles,
Beatles there.
right? The house.
In the
that's
house.
crazy.
All right,
That's
fellas,
good.
we're approaching the 45-minute mark. We are 42 minutes. What else do we got
And
from?
we have yet to leave Europe. So we have been in Europe for a while now. We have been in
All right,
Ireland. We have been in Liverpool.
Oscar,
Where are
you gotta
we
take
at?
us, bring us to America. Bring us to America, Oscar.
Oh wow. Well,
Coming to America.
And
I
then
actually I had two records in mind. I actually had two records in mind,
let's see what you
and
had in mind.
now that you guys just threw that out there, I'm thinking, all right, I'll get out of Europe then. And well, I take that back. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's American.
Give us some
Uh,
options, Oscar.
well,
Give us some options. Even if I want to hear your European
Yeah, I
options
want
too,
to
if you
hear
already
your
had them in
thought
mind.
process.
okay, I only had two in mind, but it makes me want to bring out a third one. But this was my first in mind, The Cure's first record. This is The Cure's
Wow,
Autobiography.
first. This
very
is no, no,
interesting.
no. This is their very first record. Which, oh my god, why can't I think of the name? It is Three Imaginary Boys. This is
Oh,
their
okay.
very first record ever. There's actually some songs on this album that Robert Smith didn't partake on, and
Wow.
Really?
yeah, yeah. So he actually, up until like years later, I think he like was okay with it, with them being on the album.
Okay.
But yeah, this is their very
All right.
first record, The
That's
Cure,
fun.
which I
That's a
haven't heard in
really
its entirety.
dude. That sounds
Yeah,
so
this is
interesting.
yeah.
What's your other one? What's your
I
one?
actually haven't even opened it. It's still sealed. So I bought
That's
it.
kind
I don't
of
know.
cool.
I bought it some time ago, but it's still sealed. So I was thinking, all right, this is gonna be the time to
Oh,
open it.
unboxing on the in the video.
This is
Yeah.
exciting actually.
Well, actually, I would actually open it now because I would have to hear it for the rest of the week. Well, I can listen
Yeah,
to it on Spotify, right? But maybe I'll unbox it
yeah, yeah. And
on
then
the
you'll
next
unbox it in
show.
on the video. So let's see what
So
else. What were the other
so
options?
what
And
else is
and
there?
and next was Billie Holiday. I was gonna go with Billie Holiday. Th- This one, it's one of
Definitely
those.
more to talk.
What's that?
Definitely more to talk about with Billy.
Well,
Yeah.
yes and no,
Oh,
because I
absolutely.
have so much to say about The Cure too. The Cure is one of my favorite bands, and man, that would get me going too. But I want to hear all three of his options first.
Yeah, no, no, no. I only had two options. It was
Oh, yeah,
Billy
those two.
Holidays, and this is a record library, so it has tons of songs. It's another one just like Eder chose. I think it has like well, this is a 4 LP if I'm not mistaken. It's one of those little library ones that yeah,
It's
it's
like a,
4 LPs.
it's almost like a greatest hits at this point, right?
Honestly, Oscar, the Cure one kind of really intrigues me because I've never heard the Cure first
Oh,
album.
but how familiar are you with the Cure though, Eder?
Just the stuff that I hear at the nightclubs when I was going to clubs and
So
stuff like
you don't have like you've never done a deep dive on them.
that. Yeah, I'm actually really into his writing. I think his writing is really, really good. I think it's very catchy. Like even for being moody, it's like a very
Yeah.
catchy melodic
Well,
music.
and the reason why why I had the Cure in mind is because they're on tour right now, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
there was a whole talk about how
Ticketmaster and all
you
that.
buy one of their one of their seat tickets are $20, but freaking Ticketmaster, which we have to put on blast, ends up marking it up to making that ticket of $20 be worth $100,
80 or
right?
90.
It's like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, they
And
almost
fees.
reaching 100 in fees, just in
Crazy.
all these fees. Yes, but
Hey,
yeah, I've always been a fan of the Cure. I actually will give you guys a little quick fact because I know we are right at the 46 mark. But real quick, I went on a Cure. Um, just I went on a one of those moods to where like you know what I want to own every Cure CD. This was in the late 90s. Yeah, definitely late 90s. I started buying them. So every chance I had, I would go to Tower Records or I know I'm dating myself again. Go into Tower Records, and I
remember
would just
Tower.
buy a CD. Any chance I had, I would be like, okay, this next paycheck, I'm just gonna buy myself another CD. And I wouldn't do it like every week. I would do it every month, maybe every 3 weeks.
But your goal
And
was to
then, of
own
course,
the CD.
my goal was to own every single Cure CD.
Got it.
And back then, it's not like now. Sometimes I'll purchase some records and I'll have albums like this one right here, this Billie Eilish. Like I figured, all right, I'm just gonna purchase it and open it. I don't know, maybe 10, 20 years from now, or get handed down to my kids or my daughter. But CDs, I would open right away, and I'm gonna throw it on the moment I walk out of Tower Records. I'm gonna throw it on that little
Taking
hot
the little
Civic I
plastic
had.
off, the little
Yeah,
plastic,
sometimes it was a damn. Yeah, it was a battle getting through it,
getting that
but
damn plastic off.
lo and behold, good old Baldwin Park. While I have my car parked outside of
True
the
story.
Morgan Park Community Center, they break in the car, and me, like an idiot, I had all my CDs that I owned inside that CD album of binder that we all had back in the
Mhm.
day, and they took all the ones that I had, and I was
You
close to
should,
having them all.
Oscar, you should be kind of happy. Maybe you made a cholo into something else. Like he
Yeah.
started
Oh
Yeah,
my
he
God.
became
You know what's funny, Eder? You know
a
what's
good,
funny?
good rock.
What's funny, Eder? That friends would
Pictures of
joke about.
you.
My friends would tease me about that. 20 years ago, when that happened, they would tease me. They're like, "Hey, someone actually said that same exact joke." Eder, someone said, "Hey, you should be happy. Maybe you made a cholo become like a new wave. Like he's now he's
yeah.
now a rebel. He went from a cholo to a rebel now. Boys,
Hey,
boys don't
Imagine
cry."
he started like using his girlfriend's like black lip liner and started putting on it his
Dude,
lips.
maybe I saved a life. Yeah, because
Maybe
maybe
you
that
did,
got him out
man.
of the cholo days, and now became a
No, no,
and now he's a successful businessman, and he has a
exactly.
family of
His
four.
his dad told
Um,
him, "Boys don't cry," right? And then the song said,
yeah,
"Boys don't cry." So it's like, you know what? It's okay to cry. And then it was a
yeah,
breakthrough in therapy.
yeah. So I got to think about it that way. That I
let's
maybe
let's
saved a life. So
let's do the
that's
cure.
the
Let's do the
reason.
cure, Oscar.
Just do the
Let's do
Cure,
the
dude.
cure. There's so much to talk
That's
about there.
already a
That'll be a
great
good episode.
topic.
That'll be like here with
All
the
right,
Beatles. There's so much to talk about.
and but we're gonna stick to this one here to three imaginary boys, and which is us, ironically, right? It's
Yeah, we're not
it's
We're
real.
three
gonna change.
imaginary boys.
Hey, we're gonna change the name of the podcast to Three Imaginary Boys. That's it. That's it. It's done.
Oh, that's it.
We're
And
gonna come
now
out on all.
we got
Hey, we're gonna come out on
baptized.
all the
Our,
hey
our
genres,
LGBTQCQ
podcast
rating is
genres,
gonna be through the roof.
LDGT, Vinyl.
Oh man, crazy.
March
What's the
19th of
name?
2023, Sunday. These boys were baptized into the three imaginary
I could already hear
Boys.
Ken Burns doing a documentary on us. He was like this. Today it just happened. It happened here at a minute 46:37 when Oscar says, "I think we should be called the Three Imaginary Boys." And from there, they became a success in the podcast world.
The moment that changed your life. Hey, Oscar, that's cool. And then I already have an American band in mind for my week after, so we're good. We'll bring it to America the week
Yeah,
after.
we'll move on
Back
to.
to America. Woohoo! Oh wait, is the Cure from England?
Yeah, they're from England.
Ah,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
stay
yeah.
here. But the bus went like this.
Well, yeah, because
There's so
we were
much.
high on we were high on Ireland with U2, and then Van Morrison stood in Ireland, and then we went to England with good old Paul McCartney, and we stay in England with Robert Smith and The Cure. But yeah, we'll switch it up. I think it's our first episodes when we look back, and we're on episode 1723. We're
That's
gonna
gonna take like
remember.
20 years
The
because
So we're
Irish
gonna.
invasion. We're gonna go back to. We're gonna go to the cranberries next. We're gonna do the cranberries next.
Yeah. Oh my! I've been trying to find everybody. What is it called? Everybody's doing it. Why can't we? Or
Yeah,
um, I've been
but
trying to find that record, and it doesn't go under 80
you won't
bucks.
find it.
So
You won't find it till they re-release it. Once they
by
re-release
the
it, you'll
time
get
we
it.
do episode 1000 certain, it's gonna be
You'll
like
have
we're
it.
gonna be holograms. We're not even gonna be. It's gonna be like
You're
20
gonna
hey,
be
minutes.
AI like Eder. Eder's
speaking of
AI.
YouTube,
Oh, go for it.
U2 Songs of Surrender came out on St. Patrick's Day, which was 2 days ago, and I was telling Tony this cool story that while I'm going through my backpack, I found a merchandise return card. Um, it had 17 bucks, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." I found a gift card that someone gave me for my birthday back this past December, 4 months ago, and it had 25 bucks. So whatever, I can't do the math, but it ended up being like a $12 buy out of my own money for this $50 record that just came out.
Wow.
Hey, Eder.
So
I mean, sorry, Eder. Oscar, how many LPs is that?
this one's it's
Double?
just two, yeah, it's
Yeah.
two LP, yeah, two LP pressed
Damn,
on an
that's
1800 on a
180 gram. 180
180
gram.
180 gram, and I'm
Hey,
thinking, what a
it's such
big
a
deal they make out of 180, right?
Hey, I remember Oscar when you asked me, what the hell is 180 gram? And I remember reading into the whole 180 gram. So it's basically a fatter vinyl, right? Like when you get it, it's heavier, it's fatter.
Yeah,
And
it's
they advertise,
definitely
oh,
heavy.
180 gram, right? And because sometimes you get those old school records and they're flimsy, they're thin, they're light. Um, but I remember reading somewhere where they said 180 gram is the biggest crock of ever. They're like,
It's just
it's just something to
marketing.
make you. It's marketing. It's something to make you feel like, oh, this is
Ah!
thin, it's heavier.
Oh my god,
Hey, 180 gram pieces.
I just dropped 180 grams. I just dropped 180 gram.
Oh, that is like the worst thing you could ever do.
Yeah,
Oscar,
because
now
that one's heavier. That one's
maybe it's
heavier, so
pride.
it hurts more. Son of
Hey,
a bitch.
maybe
This is
maybe the
You
fact
need
that
to
it's 180
you
grams didn't break. You're good. There we go. Now we know why 180 grams.
well,
need to
there it is. That was a commercial for 180 grams. It did not break, and this is
Can you
this is Ella
imagine
and
all the
Lewis,
vinyl collectors? They're all like having a heart attack when that happened.
and this is the one that Eder gifted me. One of the few that he gave me for my birthday this past December. Ella and Lewis, which we were listening to last night. Tony, when Eder came over, spontaneously just showed up, and he had some goodies for us. We started listening to this music, and oh my, we were on a good one. Yeah, with some, we had a few glasses of wine, with our other friends that were out hanging out, and we got them into Ellen Lewis. We got our friends actually asking like, "Oh, what's the story behind Ellen Lewis?" Which we can get into one day.
You know,
But
I was
that's
even thinking like, can you show that album real quick, Oscar? So I was
sure.
like a little buzzed last night, and I was thinking, did they hook up? They looked like they were like so nice, and then on Sunday they're
Yep.
like, oh yeah.
They look like that couple that just in the afternoons, your
Yeah,
grandparents sit outside the
they just
house and
came
just
exactly. They came back from
watch
church,
Yeah.
the cars go
and
by.
he's like, baby, I want to watch the Super Bowl. No, honey, we got to go to church. And he's like, fuck.
All right, fellas. Well, we're gonna stick with the Cure next week. The three imaginary boys are doing the three imaginary boys.
Oh, wait, I'm not doing
So
any boys.
yeah,
Take
yeah,
it
that
back. Scratch that.
yeah.
Hey, no.
Um,
All right.
but yeah, it'd be fun. The Cure always makes it fun. And then I think that's gonna be interesting for Eder because I know that Eder's probably has the least knowledge on this particular one of the Cure of this band, the Cure,
That's
from us
exactly
three.
what I'm gonna go on a deep dive. So what I do, I really go on a deep dive and I start
Let's
Oh
do a
running
deep
yes,
dive because we're gonna
guitar.
talk about the album, but then we're gonna do some Cure talk after.
Yeah,
oh
so we're
yeah.
gonna cure ourselves and purify at Lake Minnetonka. If you know that's a Prince.
Boom, boom. All right, fellas. Well, I think don't forget to follow us on Instagram. We are under record underscore row underscore vinyl. Record Row Vinyl is our crew name on Instagram. And of course, here you'll find us on a weekly basis. We try to get, well, we've missed one so far, one weekend, but we are back on track. We made it happen today, and it was fun talking about Paul McCartney and the Beatles. I mean, for you guys, it was fun. You guys talking about the Beatles and me listening about Paul McCartney and those stories, which they end up being fun. I'm telling you, I have respect for those guys. And I actually saw Paul McCartney live in 2015 at what they would call Old Cella.
Coachella.
Yeah, with the Rolling Stones, Neil Young. I can't remember who else, but
He
anyhow,
had all of them like 1,000-year-old in a band.
yeah, it was a fun concert. But yeah, let's. We are gonna move on to The Cure next week, and we'll make it fun for that as well. Thank you guys
Before
for
we sign
listening.
out, before we
Deuces.
check out one, hold on. Before we check out one quick side note, I talk about the Beatles in that book. It's Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. Check it out. Awesome book. Snippet about Beatles and a bunch of other stuff. But
Awesome.
all right, guys.
Malcolm, what?
Gladwell, Outliers.
Outliers.
Check it
Okay,
out. Awesome
cool,
book.
cool. You did say that you would find that before the end of the day, so you actually made it before the end of the show. All right,
All right, guys. So
uh,
that is our
let's check
show.
out.
Thank you very much for coming on to our Record Roll Vinyl. We're here where we're not just spinning tracks, but we're spinning truth. All right, guys. Peace out.
Peace.